So you want to live in Asia and you want to keep more of your own money. Well, in this video, we're going to run down all of the tax-free countries that you can live in Asia. Hey, I'm Andrew Henderson. Asia is really, for a lot of people who are nomads, it is one of the first places that they go. And so one of the interesting things that I see when I work with someone who did the digital nomad thing for a while and now they're in that 7 and 8 figure entrepreneur category where they're starting to really make some good money, is they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, I've been living in Bali for the last 3 years and I figured it was tax-free. And no, Indonesia is not tax-free. They just haven't caught up with you yet. I do know people that have been tagged for spending too much time in Indonesia, spending too much time in Bali, for example, and they actually had to come back and pay some tax. So what's important to understand first is just because you think you're sliding under the radar because you've got a tourist visa, you're popping in and out, doesn't necessarily mean you're not liable for tax, and doesn't necessarily mean they won't catch up with you at some point. Indonesia actually is one of the more aggressive countries at collecting tax that you would never expect. So just wanted to get that out of the way. Let's talk about tax-free countries in Asia. And the part of Asia that I think most people probably don't think of as Asia is the Gulf, the Middle East. This is home to so many of the tax-free countries in the world, from the United Arab Emirates, where you have Dubai, you have Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. Most of that part of the world is tax-free. Now, what makes it more difficult for the 7 and 8 figure entrepreneur is that a lot of that part of the world is really set up on expatriate employees, both emerging market employees, such as people who come to do construction, as well as higher level talent, like my friend who runs a private bank in Abu Dhabi. And so if you go, for example, if you go to open a bank account in any of these countries, we've done a lot of in-the-field research, and they're like, great, where do you work? What's your job? What's your salary? I'm like, I guess I take a salary from my company. They're like, what do you mean your company? Right? The Middle East is, in my opinion, largely built around people who come there to work for other people's companies. Now, the UAE, for example, has a number of different ways you can become a resident and live there and pay zero tax, whether it's buying a property for about $280,000, whether it's starting a company in one of the free zones. That's going to cost you substantially more than starting in the company in a lot of other jurisdictions would, because you're paying for that free zone access, you're paying for that actual workspace that qualifies you for the residence. But if you want to live in a tax-free country and you like the idea of the Middle East as Asia, then the UAE is not a bad option. In fact, it's probably the best option in the region. If you look at what people would more often think of as Asia, which is East and Southeast Asia, you're left with basically one bona fide tax-free country, which is Brunei. Probably not a place that's much on people's radar. I have been there, spent about 36 hours, did some research, looked into some things. I think I've had quite enough, quite frankly, and probably wouldn't be rushing to go back, let alone living there. So among livable countries in Asia with 0% tax rates, the UAE probably would be my first choice. I'm not going to move to Brunei. Bahrain is interesting for a weekend, nice place to go, lots of history. Kuwait would not be on my list. I'd be living in the UAE. I understand a lot of folks, when they think of Asia, they were thinking, I want to live in Bali, I want to live on a beach, I want to live in something a bit more tropical, with a little bit of humidity. And that's where you're going to have to get into what we call the territorial tax system countries. These are countries that have taxes. They're not zero tax countries. And quite frankly, it could be better because people don't think that you move there to save on tax. Territorial tax countries in Asia are mostly in Southeast Asia. So Singapore, the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand. These are countries where you can go and live and your foreign source income is not taxed. So let's say you've got investments somewhere else, or let's say you've got a company somewhere else. That would generally not be taxed. Now, as I always say with these systems, you want to do proper planning. For example, in Thailand, money that you remit to yourself in Thailand in the year that it was earned will be taxed. So everyone has their own take. Each country has its own take on what is taxed. If you're living in and you're like running your solopreneur business, The fact that you run it through a company offshore, technically, I mean, there's some planning needed there, okay? However, theoretically, you could live in these countries and pay rather little tax or no tax at all. So Malaysia, we've talked about the My Second Home resident program, great program. Philippines has a number of immigration programs for people to move there. Singapore, rather expensive place not only to live in, but to get in. I always talk about finding the next Singapore, because if you're looking to move to Singapore now and you're not a decamillionaire or above, you probably missed your window, unless you're starting the next very high probability company. Thailand, good place to go. So you've got a lot of options both in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia where you can go and live and pay zero tax or very little tax. Asia, difficult place to get citizenship in most cases, but a very easy place to immigrate if you have some money to your name, and a very tax-friendly place for a lot of the 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs that we talk to here at Nomad Capitalist.
Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.